people, imperiled plants, and finding your village stories from the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance. My name is Jennifer Ceska. I serve as Conservation Coordinator for the State Botanical Garden of Georgia, and I am very proud to serve as Project Manager or Coordinator for the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance, and that is what I'm speaking to you about today. Quick snapshot on Georgia. So up in the right, you see Lisa Cruz. This is from one of her presentations. So Lisa Cruz is the lead state botanist for Georgia Department of Natural Resources. Snapshot of Georgia, because Indiana folks want to know what's going on in Georgia. I'll give you a plant sketch. 4,600 plant taxa. We think that's a mighty fine number. We are number one, I think, in the Southeast. 770 species of conservation concern. These are tracked plants. 155 are protected in Georgia on state and federal lands, and 30 are federally listed under the Endangered Species Act. This is my team at the State Botanical Garden of Georgia. And I'm very proud to serve with these people. And we serve as the home base or the kitchen headquarters for the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance. I want to thank Scott Nemesnik and Alice Hykins for your invitation to speak. I am so sorry I missed the meeting in January. I was really sick with the corona. And I thought I could do it, but then I couldn't do it. So thank y'all for letting me record. It's taken me a little while to catch up. I want to thank Scott in particular for the many conversations we've had about plant conservation networking. And in particular, I have been consulting with or talking with different states about their plant conservation alliances and their networks, you know, at sharing our story, however we can help any other state set up. What happens immediately is reciprocity. So I'll share with another state how the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance is set up. People will take that and learn from it, pick up what's good for them, leave on the table what's not good for them, and maybe apply our stories to their state, or maybe not. But what's wonderful is the immediate reciprocity of the states learning from each other. And here in this image, you see how different states were getting together and sharing across state lines. But truly working with Scott, talking about the lineup of the Indiana Plant Conservation Alliance. And my goodness, y'all have hit the ground running. Your website is absolutely gorgeous. I love your concise descriptions of what you do and why you do it. And I just learned from y'all immediately. So happy to always share stories and or reflect back to you, or to champion you on, as in yay, because y'all are rocking it, Indiana. Kudos for your organization and your thoughtful approach to all things plant conservation. This is my plant village. These are the folks in the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance. And how wonderful, isn't it, to have a plant conservation village, a group of people who get your story. You don't have to define why you do what you do. They understand. And sometimes, you know, it's nice just to have people that like plant conservation, that like plants, that see plants in their daily lives. So sometimes this is me trying to talk to people about plants. This is definitely me and the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance folks and the Indiana folks. This is how we roll. Can we talk about plants? Yes. Let's have a 7-hour meeting about plants. I'm in. And, you know, more plant memes, because that's how I roll. Not having to define that plants are invasive. Not all green is good. Invasive is a technical term, a legal term. And if a plant is invasive, no, we cannot be friends anymore. They're like mean girls. We're done. We're done. Not having to explain that is really great, having your own plant conservation village in your PCA. And you know, You deserve someone who wants to know the names of all your plants. So there's a lot to be gained. We're pulling our resources, we're leveraging our tools, we're leveraging our time. But it's also good, you know, conservation is a heavy lift. Aldo Leopold, the pain of too much knowledge of what's going on in the world, in the ecological environment. You can't unsee or unknow these things. And so it's nice to be able to lift each other up. And that's what these folks do for me. And they are extraordinary. They bring their time and talents. Working with the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance is not in their job descriptions. Well, maybe one person, maybe two. But officially, they show up. They show up because they know it's important and it's good work, and we can do so much more together. So much more, so much greater impact. This is a group of maybe among the leaders of the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance, the organizations who've been with us the longest, also many of the regulatory authority leading groups. They're all essential, and they all give their time, their talent, their heart. And we're not always, you know, we're 60 organizations, 200 something people, but you know, not everybody can show up, and not everybody just contribute to every project or show up at every meeting, but people do show up. And if you need help, they are there. And if you call for a big work party to clean out the woodies of a grassland habitat, they are there to help and plan and think and contribute even intellectually, which is remarkable. So we do say that the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance was the first state-based plant conservation network. Our main goal is to prevent any local extirpations. No populations are to wink out on our watch. We use safeguarding ex situ to do a lot of that work, but the priority of our work must happen in situ. Conservation must happen in situ. Seed banks, safeguarding living collections are a tool in the toolbox. And our first priority are Georgia populations. So if it's an S1, it is a particular priority to us, even if it's not necessarily listed under the Endangered Species Act. We did base our Plant Conservation Alliance on the New England Plant Conservation Program, NEPCOP, and this was created by Bill Brumbach. This botanical garden is now called the Native Plant Trust. You likely well know of them. But Bill was my mentor, and I could call him and say, we got this going on. What do you think? Just have somebody reflect back, bounce back, that something's a good idea is very powerful and reassuring. And Bill was that for me, and I've tried to serve that role, paying it forward for other states, mostly just cheering people on. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this. This is a simple formula. This is a simple recipe. And just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not powerful. When we started in 1995, we had just the center core organizations. We operated by phone and fax. There was no listserv or mobile phone or texting. And I'll say this about 100 times, but nothing beats getting together face to face. And I know COVID and all the things, and at least we're doing this virtually. But meeting face to face, right? You know, when you're in the field with somebody, how you're working and you're bantering and you're creating, and there's inside jokes. You know, that time Jennifer got stuck in the bog up to her hips and we had to pull her out. All that time face to face, it builds trust. And thank goodness for Zoom and these virtual meetings that we can still continue to see each other's faces and to learn each other's hearts, so that when we send that curt email, you know, so somebody's in a hurry and it's brief and they're like, oh, is that someone's, are they being angry, or are they just in a hurry? When we know someone's heart, we know their intent, it helps allay any problems or concerns. So time together is great, and we're going to get there. We're going to be together again. So this was us in 1995. We've grown organically. Organizations coming to us saying, we'd like to help with plant conservation. And like I've heard in your, the way y'all interact in Indiana in regard for each other, it's like, come on, we need the help. Come on. If you can contribute to plant conservation in any kind of, all the ways, because there's many ways, then please come on. We have about 220 individuals, and people contribute as best they can. We have a policy that the door stays open. These are long-term commitments, and we're all just going to chip away at all the projects as best we can year to year, doing this on top of everything else that we're doing, and cheer each other on. Among the partners, 6 are federal, 18 are state, 31 are private. 22 have horticulture capacity, nature centers, 1 private plant nursery and botanical gardens. And 16 of our partners do hold indexed horticulture, safeguarding, conservation collections, and we're looking to increase that with a new grant that we have. We need more people up and carry the responsibility and the fun. 23 institutions that have research capacity, 19 are universities. 38 of our partners own and manage natural areas, which is wonderful. And 7 have legal authority, and that's important for helping us to move through projects faster, have permits in place, have permissions. People know through time, they know our conservation ethic. They know our attention to detail with provenance. And so we can move through permitting projects faster, certainly than we could at the beginning of our tenure together. This is Gratuitous Plant Shop. These are a goodly number of the species we work with. So I think we're up to 105, and I'll explain that in a minute. What I think is interesting, of the 105 that we work on, 100 are sun-loving, which probably explains why so many are eking out their existence on roadsides and rights of way. But of our 105, 19 are G1S1, or globally rare S1, but 81 are S1. So again, that state focus, that state ethic. Yes, we will work on species outside of our state boundaries. We will contribute to species conservation across the range, but our focus, we've got to make sure we keep the S1 species going in our state. Loosely grouped, 18 are in the Blue Ridge province, 22 in the Northwest Georgia sweet soils area, and then 14 in the Piedmont of Georgia with our terrible red clay soils. 2/3 of our state is the coastal plain, and that reflects in that 47 of the species we work on their recovery are in the coastal plain. Roughly 10 species or taxa are trees or shrubs. 3 of them are grasses. Most of them are forbs, but we do have 1 daughter, and it's doing well. I always want to say, don't call me daughter. I know, plant jokes. Okay, so this is a little confusing. Hold on tight. Number of taxa or species up the y-axis, across the x are years, 1995 to 2020. Over the years, we've had a series of programs that's down the right side of the table, big initiatives. And the big initiatives we've noticed through time changed the number of species that we worked on, we have worked on as a group. So from 95 to what? Going into the first 10, 15 years of the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance, that orange, those orange bars are showing you the species that we worked on. So for years and years and years, we worked on the same projects. We built slowly for 15 years. So I say this to every group: build your projects through time, build your camaraderie, build your capacity, but just keep working and chipping away at it. We have had some jumps in our projects. The blue lines are when agency folks came to us and said, we need you please to consider these additional species. And our orange lines have caught up with those requests through time. We've had some bumps though. So the first bottom circle on the left, around 1999, that was when we brought in specially trained volunteers to contribute to our projects. Our capacity increased so much that our ability to do good work rose because of these botanical guardian volunteers. So we were able to add another 28 species to our list of 5 projects because of bringing in specially trained volunteers. So that was a bump. In the middle of the chart, you see another circle, and that was a bump that came about because of petition species, the big petitioning project that happened a few years ago. So these are the jumps in our numbers of projects through time. Our state botanist, Tom Patrick, brought us our first 20 projects, and we worked on 5 and increased through time. Volunteers helped us do more. The first state wildlife action plan was in 2005. That brought another suite of species, then the petition species, then the 2015 swap. So our orange lines are catching up and trying to keep up with now the state wildlife action plan. So that's how our list has gotten so high. But we do find that we are struggling to keep up, and we're having to prioritize. And we do spend a lot of time thinking about what is ideal and what is doable without, and it's okay to cycle through projects with different amounts of energy. And we check in as a group to make sure that we're not, if one project's gotten a lot of action, can we give another species a leg up and just keep all those species moving forward through time? But that prioritization is a big part of what we're doing, especially these last 3 years. These are GPCA essentials. I see this, I'm speaking these out to you, but I see you, Indiana Plant Conservation Alliance, doing all of these things. One essential, document and share your work, your resources, your techniques, also your good press. We share. But the positive psychology is really important. And I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Cultivating relationships, again, spending time together is so important. Building trust, being comfortable to call somebody up and ask them for help. Spending time together, always face to face. Allowing the open time in meetings, I learned through time, was important. We scheduled so many speakers, we scheduled so much discussion that I realized how, the networking, the project planning that's happening at the snacks table, at the coffee the coffee pot, and the water cooler. So that unscheduled time is really essential in our meetings. We try to tie field work now to all our meetings. Twinning and partnering is really important. It's how we got started. We twinned up with Atlanta Botanical Garden. They taught us our horticulture conservation, and then we can start sharing and lifting up others. That twinning is really important for helping new folks come in and feel empowered. Really, it's very selfish because we just need everybody's help. There's so much to do. So again, everything becomes, any kind of twinning situation or consulting situation immediately becomes reciprocal. People they bring so much, but they bring great heart. We have project leaders, and they don't have to be experts on the taxa or the conservation recovery, but they need to be a champion for the species. They need to be willing to keep that species in front of people's focus, call for meetings, check in on field work, report in. That's a really important role for us in our project leads. And we have a model of, we talk about the 3-legged stool, with horticulture, land management, and legal authority being so important. Research being maybe the seat of the table, but that's how we get a lot of conservation done, is by having all those partners with all those skills and resources and tools in the room. And one last essential for us, and I know for you, monitoring is forever. We will forever be monitoring these rare plant populations. Monitoring and management are a big part of what we do. Everybody loves safeguarding, everybody wants to outplant, but monitoring and management are the essential things that are keeping our plants and our plant populations on the planet. Some other lessons learned, some other bits. It's really hard to cross a species off the list. We've done that. We've been humbled. And I will tell you a couple of those stories in a minute. Another lesson learned is really important to pause. We get so excited to outplant, but is the site ready to receive those plants? Is there too much competition? Is management ongoing and active? We've put plants out and then not been able to find them. So timing, plant collections, safeguarding collections that can go out with, is the site ready to receive? It was an important lesson I call it my Lorax moments, like the Lorax is popping me on the forehead. Jennifer, pause. Some other lessons learned, explain in a minute too, but rights of way are essential, of course, but they're also, how do we become roadside botanists? It's where so many of our plants are. So it becomes essential, and it becomes essential to work with those partners that do manage rights of way. Recovery projects require long-term commitments, especially with plants. One species, Kalmia caroliniana, it took us 18 years to figure out how to make it live after we planted it in the ground, in the wild, and an outplanting. 18 years to figure it out. So just keep at it. We'll figure it out eventually. We will tinker and learn and tinker and learn and tinker and learn and do it again. Actively support younger colleagues, students. They bring so much and we need them. We need them so much as we age out. Oh, and local stewards, we learned early on, are so important. That is a volunteer, somebody who can serve as a local steward to pop by a site, check on the plants. How's that population doing? That is an enormous responsibility and an important resource that a professional, a volunteer brings to all of our projects. And then, especially as I'm in 27 years into conservation networking, thinking about the next people are going to carry these projects forward. And there's a fleet of brothers and sisters out there in the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance that are they're picking it up and they're carrying it right along. This is way bigger than anything that Jennifer is doing. This is a group of people that are extraordinary that keep these projects and these species going. So some of these lessons learned. We thought we were entering with our mountain bog projects a management phase, a monitoring phase. We had outplanted, we had duplicated sites. They're on protected land. We have the active seedling recruitment, so babies on the land, multiple generations. And then in 2016, we had the hog catastrophe. Hogs hit all of our pitcher plant bogs, the natural bogs and the safeguarding sites. And while that was devastating, we put the plants back in the ground as best we could. We rebuilt the sphagnum mats as best we could. And luckily the Atlanta Botanical Garden has more plants, and trying to get ahead of the hogs and caging and all the things. We'll put those purple pitcher plants and the other companion plants back out. So management, monitoring, sticking with it. And sometimes we think we're sort of in a home stretch, a little stride, get a little breathing, and then hogs or some other natural disaster or something happens. But we're in it for the long haul. So this was me being humbled, rights of way being so essential. GDOT, Georgia Department of Transportation, is one of our most wonderful partners. Georgia Power, the power company, the major power company in Georgia, and their transmission lines and power lines, a wonderful essential partner. They have staff, they put time into the rare plant populations on their rights of way. Yes, things go wrong. Yes, mowers and sprayers miss the signs, but we are constantly iterating and working on it and trying to do better. And they're coming to us with great heart, and we're grateful for them that they are working with us on the last of the sun-loving sites in Georgia. So essential partners. Sometimes we have to get a little wild in conservation. This was a lesson learned. The Rus michoii, dwarf sumac, we almost lost it in Georgia. The males and females were separated by several hundred miles. Yes, we try to keep populations isolated. We don't mix populations unless it's a very rare site with lots of conversation and we're mixing in a novel site. But in this case, we brought the females to the original males in the original male site because we were desperate. Everything had been failing, even in cultivation. And it worked. And the males perked up and the females went crazy. And there are more stems now. There's over 10,000 stems now. It's hard to even count. And they are flowering for the first time and they are reproducing. So a secret ingredient for conservation is love and maybe some privacy in the wild. Some other lessons, milestones that we've been thinking through as a team. Most of our work is we target our work for protected lands because it ensures some longevity. But some of our best, most diverse sites are on private lands, and this is Canucci Bogs. And it is the most botanically rich site listed by several organizations in Georgia. and it's privately owned, and it is challenging working with 7, 8, 9, 10 different landowner private families and family dynamics and try to get them a conservation easement. But Lisa Cruz, our lead state botanist, boy, did she do it. And it's a fabulous project. And there is now, there are conservation easements on several of these properties, and fire is getting on the land and the plants are recovering beautifully. So private lands may be more challenging, but doggone it if they aren't worth it. So humbled about that too. And the importance of thinking of all partners. We talk about project leads not having to be an expert. It's very important in the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance that all expertise is regarded and viewed and honored. If it's a PhD, if it's self-taught, it is all even field. We are all together and everybody is bringing their time and talents and resources. And here's an example of a student and a volunteer who are recovery leads for Silene regia, the last population in North Georgia. There's only 2 populations or EOs at all in Georgia. And these 2 young folks got in there and took a population that was winking out, got fire in the land, got private landowner commitments, and really have had a bounce back in the success of this population. People coming forward with heart. It's amazing. A milestone, we've worked on the recovery of Echinacea laevigata. It's a G1. It's federally threatened. It's Echinacea. It's a smooth cone flower, smooth stems. We've worked on the recovery of its habitat on Forest Service land, opening the habitat, creating grasslands, oak savannas. And we do our work right. We come at it from the plant side. This fella is doing his research, this fella in the yellow shirt, on a northern pine snake. And he spent 9 years working on his PhD, 9 years trying to find a live northern pine snake in Georgia. And he had been doing so much advocacy and teaching that a wildlife management area technician saw a snake, knew enough to call Brian Hudson and say, I think I got a northern pine snake. Anyway, they put a tracker in the snake at University of Georgia Vet School, and then they re-released it. And I got to go to the release here. But what was so lovely was that the animal people were crediting the plant people with them being able to find the site, the snake. They were crediting the fact that the habitat across so much area, because of the restoration work that the Forest Service and the Georgia Department of Natural Resources and Georgia Power had done, that it was because of that work that the snake was maybe having some success. And so, right, plant people, we do what we do, and we're real tender about animals, and we're crying and we're happy, and it was a really good day. So fast, some more stories. We have just in our 25th year or so started thinking about dividing our projects out regionally. We stayed at a listing level so much, or what could we do capacity level so much in choosing our projects. And now we're being more thoughtful about reaching all the pockets of our state. And Lisa Genke in the middle is our Southwest Georgia lead. So she's helping to push projects and develop partnerships as a professional lead within the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance as part of her daily job. Now, I noticed that this is something that you set up, Indiana, right away with your geographical regions and your projects thoughtfully spread out. And this, I'm just cheering for you so hard. And I'm telling you that the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance is now doing this. So we've had our 2nd year of regional meetings and regional prioritizations of projects and developing more regional capacity for people to do conservation work. So many of our institutions are in the northern part of our state. So many of our species are throughout, and we need regional capacity. So kudos to y'all, and thank you for that lesson that we totally stole from them. And another thing I'm noticing in your committees, that you have this strong leadership among so many of your committees. What you have is ownership. You have really broad ownership. And with we're seeing now with regional leads and developing regional capacity in Georgia that we're getting more ownership, and it's not Jennifer calling meetings, it's other people calling meetings, and it's growth and it's strength. And so reflecting back to you, Indiana, that is wonderful. So thank you so much for that, and that ownership lesson. So this is me, this is what I do. I'm the spider. I love how my sunglasses in that picture, right? The jumping spider eyes. And mostly what I'm doing is I'm cajoling, I'm cheering, I'm championing, as in verb. I'm the champion for the people doing this amazing work. We have profiles up. I see your plant profiles up on your website, and we have these up on our Department of Natural Resources website. We call this a whole species workup. I borrowed that from the Alabama Plant Conservation Alliance. We need a whole species workup stat on all the things known about a plant species and populations. Simple charts like this, like the flowering and fruiting time, really help us plan our projects. One of our botanists, Linda Chafin, created this for us. And then Jason Ligon at the Atlanta Botanical Garden is also leading the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance through maternal line tracking, seed collecting. We've always done bulk seed collecting, and now we're slowing down and tracking the seeds of mothers, and even in their seed banking, the seeds are kept by mother, just to keep that baseline of as many mothers moving, the genetics of as many mothers moving forward through time. It's a policy of the Center for Plant Conservation. It's new to us as an alliance, but it's something that we're working on the last 2 years. I will share with you, we have a GPCA lexicon. I could share this with you, but it's all that slang that we use and the acronyms. My goodness, we have acronyms. Frog egging, we stole from wildlife people, but it's you're putting plants out into the wild, you're going to put 20 in an outplanting site because you just want to sit, you've only got so much material, you just want to see if you can make them stick for a year, live for a year, and you want to get that microsite planting just right. And frog egging, so we get it right, then we're going to take another 20 or another 100 depending on how many plants we have. So we use terms like that, and this lexicon helps us to communicate among all partners, especially and new partners too, through time. And then another document that I hope by telling you about it, I'll be accountable and we can get it out. It's written, it's drafted, it's a bit about the ethics of how we roll, how we vote. It's our network culture, how we, the importance of how we regard each other, no matter how someone's trained. All that is in a multi-page document that I think will be valuable for lots of people for plant conservation and networking. And I want to pause. This part about culture is really important, and I am winding down, and I know I'm over my 20 minutes. So thank you for staying with me. But the culture of the Plant Conservation Alliance, the culture of your group is so important. And we didn't have the social science words early in our tenure as a network. We learned through time. Now we're checking social science literature and learning some words, but someone reflected to us in 2020 that we're a successful, high performing group. And I didn't know that, but why we are successful and high performing, I mean, I see it, but I didn't know the why. And it's part of creating a safe space to create and mess up, miss something, and keep at it. And that is really powerful to know that in social science that is very highly regarded, but that is something that we're very serious to create. We say it out loud a lot at our meetings. This is a safe space to ask questions and create and wonder and think through how we can do the work we're doing. So high performing teams need psychological safety. And I see that in the tone of how you regard yourselves, how Scott introduces and welcomes people in your Indiana Plant Conservation Alliance meeting. So tip in the hat. And a recent aha moment was about Wordle. There was an NPR story on Wordle in January, and how it's so. Why is it so so popular? But it's actually social scientists are looking at that, and the fact that in Wordle you have a common cause, you're pursuing a common project, common goals, that creates high functioning groups. It's very powerful for humans to be working together on a big goal, a higher pursuit. And that is exactly what we do in these plant conservation alliances. So this is us in PCAs. We are cheering on all of our partners. They are trekking it to the finish line, and we're, you know, as best we can. You've visited the population and the plant, sport, and flower. Well, doggone it, you visited the population. We are so grateful. We're going to go in there and see why they're not flowering. We're going to figure it out. We're going to do it together. But thank you for going to visit the population. It's all those little regards. And 2 quick stories that I need to tell on myself. Lessons learned. When I give reports to the GPCA, it's usually from the GPCA Kitchen. That service ethic that we're serving from the kitchen. But a couple lessons, couple of humbling lessons learned in the last year. Lessons from the pea pod and, well, it's a milkweed pod, from the pod and the pruners. From the pruners. Botanist Gemma, Millie, and I are in the pitcher plant bog, and we are cutting back the vegetation around the endangered purple pitcher plants, our priority recovery species for this habitat. And I'm just cutting back everything that's green that's not pitcher plant. And Jim's like, what are you cutting? And I'm like, I'm cutting back around the pitcher plants to give them more light, give them a little lean on light. We call it microsite gardening. Jim's like, yeah, I know that. But what are you cutting? I'm like, graminoids, grasses, sedges. I'm not sure. She's like, well, that's an isoedes. What? A quillwort. What? Lesson learned. Be mindful of what you're cutting back. Gemma collected those graminoidaceous linear-leaved critters from around the purple pitcher plants and found 6 species of carex, and she's still working on the identification of these, and some unusual isoedes species, some coolworts. It had been 25 years since we did a thorough botanical inventory of this site. We did before we introduced the pitcher plants on this site. We did have a formal botanical survey done, and it's been a long time, and this site has received management for 25 years. Maybe it's time to slow down and do a botanical inventory again. Pause, check in, adapt, keep going. So that was brought to us by one of our newest botanists in the state, and good for her for poking at Jennifer and saying, hey now, what are you doing? Yeah, I know that. But what are you cutting? It was brilliant. Second lesson recently, this Matalea, this fruit that you're looking at, it's the first fruit in what, 10, 11 years of trying to get Matalea, Alabama milk vine pods, hand pollinating, and, you know, trying to pollinate these asclepiaceous type flowers. They're just maddening, these crazy. If we could get something to flower, trying to pollinate these things by hand. We finally got one pod in 10 years of trying. And Erin Cork, the Department of Natural Resources, found it. She paused to check in. She said, we've got one pod, shall I take it? I was like, take it. Wait, we have the 20% rule, 10% rule, not to collect more than 10% of the seeds for a site. That number might, there's research going that number might go up to 20%. The point was, and our state botanist paused and said, hang on. Leave some seeds so that the species, the population has a chance to become ecologically relevant. These seeds, these plants have ecological relevance because they are ecological relevance and biological relevance. By taking all the seeds, we start to play evolution and decide who lives and goes forward through time and who doesn't. Jennifer waters quickly and some of the plants die against the glass wall. I've made a decision, and who lives and dies ex situ. So Erin took just a few seeds from that pod and left the others there, creating ecological relevance, biological relevance for some seeds. Give them a chance, and maybe they'll be there, and maybe we'll learn. That was a really good lesson. We know the 10% rule, which may be moving towards a 20% rule, to never take more than 10% of seeds. And that goes for even a single pod. So kudos to Lisa Cruz on that one. These are a bunch of stats. Maybe you could pause the video and look at these if you wish. Mostly, yes, we do safeguarding. Yes, we have lots of people working together, and that's fabulous. Monitoring is so important. management is so important. Field surveys are so important. And it's a big part of what we do. I think the safeguarding gets a lot of attention, but all the steps are so important. In situ, ex situ, the whole circle. And our projects are at all different places along that in situ, ex situ circle. Some are very far along. Some are barely getting started. Some are stopped. We've got problems we can't figure out. So we'll just keep at it. Long-term commitments and almost done. But we did something new last year that I thought was great. And it was not my idea. It was a day of service. So we were not able to have a virtual meeting or not able to have a group meeting again. And we missed so much being in the field together. So we said, okay, instead of we're going to have a virtual meeting one day and we're going to be in the field together throughout the state another day. Here's a series of projects that different regional leaders have said are really important. Here's the time and places to meet at the different places. Can you get together and let's do some work and get a snapshot of what the Plant Conservation Alliance accomplishes in an average, well, in one day or in an average week. And think about how many times in a week during the growing season we do this work. But in one day, we had 5 work parties. We had over 40 conservation professionals in the field. We had 15 students and volunteers with us, and 250 hours of work were contributed to a bunch of recovery actions in a single day. And that's not even getting at what was accomplished on behalf of the species or the populations. That's just looking at the people impact and what an alliance can contribute in a single day. That's a big financial impact. So I'm going to end with that. Kudos to you, Indiana Plant Conservation Alliance. I mean it when I say that you're rocking it. I look forward to attending your meetings. I would love to meet you in person and see you someday and go in the field with y'all. And just want to say, keep on keeping on. And I love hearing your stories. So keep me in the loop as you can. And that is my cat meowing in the background. And I want to say a good night and thank you for letting me record and share this. All right, be well, stay in touch, door stays open.